Hello, my name is Rodrigo, and today I'm going to tell you a scary story that happened with me. I will never forget that Friday night of the 13th of October of 1995 was the night my friends and you were almost attacked by a creature horrible that haunted us for a dark and long road. While we came back from school at night, one creature that I had only heard of legends and horror stories told, feared by my grandparents. Werewolves. This group of friends with whom I experienced this horror story. Scary was made up of 5 friends, me, Julio, Raphael, Anna, and Carol, me. I liked Carol a lot since I met her. She was beautiful, intelligent, and friendly. She had long hair and black-brown eyes and a smile charming. I always tried to approach her, but until then I never had courage to declare myself. I didn't know if did she feel the same way about me or if she saw me just as a friend. I highlight your presence in this group because in the future it would become my wife, but only in my second marriage. We lived in a small city located in the interior of Parana. It was a quiet town, but with a lot movement, mainly in the area commercial and agricultural. We were ages between 15 and 16 years old, and we studied the high school at night in a school that it was in the neighboring city about 20 kilometers away. We had the option of going study by bus, but on Fridays we preferred to go by bike because it was more fun. And at least once a month, on one of these Fridays, we had a ritual where we turn around at night, watching movies and eating junk food. Julio's house, who was the only one of us who I had a VCR at that time. Before we went to school, we liked to stop by the little market that I was right there in front to buy sweets. Snacks and other things come back after school. We rent movies at a rental store nearby that was open until the early hours. We've been doing this for months, and we never had any problem. Before we left, we had the last class with a history teacher called Evandro, who by chance right in the end of the class mentioned the fact that that day was Friday the 13th, a date that many people associate with horror. He told us some stories about urban legends and myths related to that date. It was that moment that I had the idea that that day we would just take horror movies to watch. That night, I talked to my friends and everyone agreed, excited after the bell rings. We left the school around 10 p.m. as always. Despite the intense heat during the day, tonight was cooler and pleasant, with a very cloudy sky and moon full, and few stars. We took our bikes and with backpacks on our backs. We went to the rental office there. After looking for a while, we rented 3 films, The Crow, that wasn't very scary, but we didn't know The Night of the Living Dead. And finally, after I had a lot of doubt, and I took it and showed it to all Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which I think was the 4th film in series. Everyone approved right away because it would be a very suitable film for that. One day after that, we started our journey following the road that connected the 2 cities. Was a dirt road, and in several sections being poorly lit and little busy at night we cycled talking and laughing without worrying about anything. We were excited to arrive at Julio's house and watch the movies we had rented. We were doing well until I had a problem with my bike, the tire. It got stuck and we decided to stop. I tried to check what had happened, repair it with the kit he carried in his backpack, but unfortunately, I didn't get it. Success, the tire was very damaged to be repaired, in that at the moment we had no other option than keep following the road. With me pushing a bicycle with a flat tire next to me, we were about 10 kilometers away from Julio's house, but it seemed much more. The road was getting darker and silent, and no cars passed by. Or it was then that we started to hear some strange noises in the woods next to us. There were the sounds of branches breaking, leaves moving, and something heavy moves dragging across the floor. It seemed like something big was following us, hiding Carol among the trees. She was scared and asked what it was that Raphael said he didn't know, but which didn't look good at all. I questioned if it couldn't be some animal. Julius doubted and wanted to know. That animal made that noise suggested a jaguar or a wild dog. Raphael said that I had never heard that there was any of these animals in that region. We didn't know what it was, but we were sure we didn't want to discover. We accelerate the pace, trying to leave the premises as quickly as possible. However, the noises continued closer and louder. We felt that the thing was getting ready for us attack at any time. Raphael said that further on another road that crossed the path of the one we were there was his uncle's house. He remembered that in this uncle's house there were old bicycles in a garage, and that there we could find something to fix my uncle's house. It was located on a farm about 2 kilometers from distance. He said we could pass by there. We decided to follow Raphael's plan and cycle to your uncle's house in search of help to fix my bike. as we approached the chakara. The noises in the forest were falling behind, and after a while we don't listen anymore, nothing. When we got there, we were welcomed by the lively barking of the chakara dogs. As soon as we passed through the gate, they ran around us demonstrating joy and curiosity, even a little worried about the events. Previously we greeted dogs with caution, but we soon realized that they were docile and friendly animals. As we approached the porch of the house, we saw Raphael's uncle sitting on a rocking chair, enjoying a cup of tea. He greeted us warmly and invited us to sit down and rest the atmosphere for a while. A quiet part of the chakara calmed us down, leaving us more. We will explain what had happened with the bike, and the uncle kindly offered to help him, took a quick look and said he had a new tire with a new tube in the garage. We feel immediate relief knowing that soon we could continue We followed the path to Uncle's garage, where we saw his car. A rural Willys year 72 that had the hood opened and explained what he was doing some repairs before our arrival. And I had stopped for a while to have some tea. He went deeper into the garage where there was a lot of junk piled up and found a wheel with a tire. He handed over the wheel and said I could use it to fix my bike, picked up some keys that were in a toolbox on a bench, and started to help me remove the wheel to exchange the tire, while we both looked at my friends who were around talking, commented on the strange noises that we heard in road. The uncle with his calm voice said, a lot of stories were spreading around the region about mysterious creatures and scary legends. He believed that most were just figments of imagination of people, but did not rule out the possibility of there being mysteries explained. While we finished the bicycle concert, the uncle suggested that let us spend the night there, or else he would take him home in his missing car, little time to finish arranging the vehicle, and he stated that we could leave our bikes on site and pick them up the next day, worried about our security. The uncle warned us about the dangers of returning home at this time. From the night, he mentioned that the road between the two cities were poorly lit, that leave us vulnerable to possible risks. By understanding the validity of their concerns, we are grateful for the offer, Uncle's generous spirit, mainly because by that time it was already close to midnight with the bike repaired, and Uncle's generous offer, Raphael. What problems were resolved? After a long time, your uncle did too finish packing your car, while that in front of the house we discussed between us about the possibility of spend the night there. The idea seemed tempting, but there was a problem. All our parents knew that we would sleep at Julio's house, and they were waiting for us. Plus, there was no telephone number at that farm. Let's contact Julio's house and notify about change of plans. Therefore, we decided that we would accept the ride from Raphael's uncle. Thanking your generosity, his uncle approached while we were talking and realizing our decision. He had a great idea. Before we leave, he said there was a trailer in the farm that he used to transport things like firewood and equipment, agricultural. The idea was to hitch the trailer behind the car, position our bikes on him so he would take home, avoiding the need to pick them up the next day. We agreed with the idea, and after it complete the trailer connection in rural, we started putting the bikes in, up with the car prepared and our bicycles properly accommodated. We were ready to continue our journey. Return home, Raphael sat on the front passenger seat with his uncle, and the rest of us were in the back seats. Carol was next to me. The clock. It was midnight when we finally started our journey of back home. The road was almost deserted, and the darkness was thick with just the headlights of the old rural and the light of the full moon lighting our path. Silence prevailed in the car, with all of us thinking about the strange events that we had experienced more early when we were few kilometers from reaching Ju's house. Car started to lose power gradually and eventually stopped completely. Uncle tried several times. Started again, but the engine just wouldn't take it. He took one flashlight in the glove compartment, came out of the car, opened the hood and began to investigate. That could be wrong. Raphael, visibly worried, got out of the car and went to help him, holding the flashlight illuminating the engine, while your uncle worked inside the vehicle. Increases, while we looked anxiously waiting for the problem was resolved. After a few minutes while waiting, the uncle asked Raphael to get into the front seat and try start. After a few attempts, the car, it started working again. Raphael jumped back to the passenger seat, and the uncle closed it from the car. However, something called our pay attention to something far away that the hood of the car was covering while it was open to Carol, held and squeezed my hand tightly. And I looked in the direction in that everyone was fixing their gazes, each approximately 100 meters away. In dark road, there was a black figure illuminated by the car's headlights. It seemed a huge dog, much bigger than any animal I had ever seen. At that moment, Raphael's uncle looked into the car and saw the expression scared in our faces. He doesn't understood what was happening. We all point behind him, and he turned his head slowly, seeing with his own eyes that responsible for print fear on our faces. Slowly he retreated into the interior of the car at the same time as the creature seemed to begin to advance in our direction. When entering, the uncle put the gear in gear, and without thinking he started to accelerate the car. However, after traveling just 3 meters, car died again. Despair took over account of everyone while we tried to call the car outside. That creature already was on top of us, and seemed still bigger and scarier, resembling much to what we knew as werewolf. Something we had only seen in films terror, that we watched it surround the car, jumping on it and scratching the bodywork like if he wanted to catch us in there. Despair and screaming were generalized to Carol, who previously held my hand, now hugged me tightly. Dirty prints of huge paws spread across the windows around the old rural brands that then no longer would let it pass like crazy. When tell that story, when we arrived home, were endless moments of terror. But finally, after more than 2 harrowing minutes, the car managed call again. Raphael's uncle sped up quickly, and the creature continued to chase the car during a part considerable distance, running behind of us with a determination scary. Finally, after a terrifying creature chase, seemed to get tired and gave up. Backwards we continue at high speed until we arrived at Julio's house, where his parents were already waiting for us. Worried about the late, we got out of the car with our hearts accelerated, trembling with fear and relief, for we are safe. Raphael's uncle explained to his parents what that had happened, but we knew it was hard to believe story of that creature terrifying, yet the image, that black dog with yellow eyes pursuing, would remain with us, for always haunting our minds rest of our lives that night. We certainly didn't watch any of the movies that we had rented, at least don't bother us to do. This nada in PR became ours nightmare, more terrifying than any horror movie we could to have assisted. We continue our ritual of watch films at Casa de Julio, but with a considerable adjustment, we now made our meeting on Saturdays, well before dusk, to avoid any possibility of finding the one or any other creature again in parallel. Each of us did a silent pact, never to venture on the roads of that city after the dusk. The image of that creature still remains with us in our nightmares, a constant reminder of our encounter with something supernatural. And although the legends of werewolves and creatures mysterious were just stories for most people to us, have become an experience that made us question the unknown and believe that some legends can have a background of true. And thus I conclude the story of this terrifying experience that transformed a Friday the 13th night into something worthy of a horror movie. Considering we never made it clarify the true identity of the creature, what we experience remains until today as a personal legend, a tale scary we only share between friends and relatives, and now with you. Thank you, and see you. Next, hello. How are you? This narrative you'll hear now. It's always been told by my grandfather, who passed away 4 years ago. He always shared it seriously, which makes this story even more true. And my grandfather also always was known for his honesty as a child. I heard carefully your words, and even now, 24 years old as a civil police officer, trained this sinister story. Never stopped me intrigue. Everything happened in the city of Kichirmobin, interior of Ceará, a city known as the Heart of State, more precisely in the locality of Aroeiras. Out of respect for privacy of the community, I will not reveal my name, and I will also change the names of the people present in this report. From now on, I will narrate it as if it were mine grandfather telling this story. At the time, I was a young man of 17 years, fearless, in the face of life, only divine reprimands, together with my father, Antonio Prudente, and my uncle, Francisco Prudente. We faced something so horrifying that even the bravest of men would question their own courage. Aroeiras has always been a quiet community, 20 kilometers from the city in Keramin. That year, 1965, roads were being paved, attracting many outsiders to the region. After 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the men who worked on the road gathered together to talk and drink cachaça. It was in this context in which the events occurred. Scary. This story, I was in a bar called Yours Acricio with my uncle Francisco. where we rejoined the men of construction during the conversation, and some doses of kachaka, I noticed a man watching with hostility in his eyes, something I couldn't understand. After some time, my uncle and I left the bar, but the man continued to face it. On another occasion, I got involved in an argument with this man, because I caught harassing my girlfriend today, my wife, after a punch thrown by me. He just smiled and threatened that I would have what deserved to spend about a week. In one full moon night, we heard a howl, loud in the distance, awakening our attention during the dawn. We heard heavy footsteps near the house, and an odor unpleasant. We remained silent, waiting, while my father held his cartridge ready to face the creature. The affliction lasted until the dawn, when we dared to go outside. We witnessed the devastation caused by a creature that killed animals, like chickens, goats, and even my father's horse. At that moment, we decided it was time to face her on the next moon nightfall. We organized ourselves to set up our ambush. We planned carefully our plan, hiding in spots strategic, and arm ourselves to face imminent danger. Around 11 o'clock at night, finally, we saw the terrible creature that, so we feared, I was able to witness with my own eyes. The frightening apparition, a bee deformed, that vaguely resembled a canine figure with sharp teeth, ears, disproportionate hair, and a dark grey that made it even more threatening. My uncle was the first to act, firing your gun at the monster. Soon after, my father and I too, we fire our weapons, causing the creature let out a terrible scream before falling to the ground. It was a moment of relief mixed with a sense of duty fulfilled. After the creature's death, we were surprised to discover that it was about the man who had tried to harass my future wife. Community was shocked to see the body pierced by bullets, testifying to the violence that the incident had occurred, left a deep mark on everyone. Over time, the construction of the road was finally completed, and the creature was never seen again. It seems our courageous and determined action helped to bring peace back to our community. This is my story, and by the way, my grandfather also used to share an intriguing account of a friend who discovered he was a werewolf in the year 2000. However, I will leave this story for another time. Good evening.